Hey guys, today we're going to go in a slightly different direction. I want to talk to you a little bit about a big part of our lives. As you guys know, Chris has been a police officer for 11 years now, and he absolutely loves it. It's definitely his calling. It's where he needs to be. We're going to chat about that a little bit. I got my thin blue line shirt on. Hang on. We got to set the mood a little bit with that was creepy. Here, let's see. Popo's gonna get ya! I'm gonna tell you all about what it's like to be a police wife. Here we go. I get asked all the time, what is it like to be married to a cop? So let me tell you some of the good and some of the bad. I'm going to give you both sides. I don't know where to begin. It's a really hard thing to answer this question quickly because it's such a loaded question. There's so many layers to it. What's it like to be a police wife? Let me tell you, you get to see your man in uniform on a daily basis. And let me tell you, 11 years in, that does not get old. Oh goodness. Woo! He looks so good in uniform. That uniform though is something that everybody always talks about, right? Everybody knows that a guy looks good in a uniform. Let's talk about a few things that often are not discussed or are not known unless you're living in that situation. Speaking of uniforms and tools for the job, we literally have a closet in our room completely dedicated to police gear. Uniforms and bulletproof vests and belts and tools that go on the belt, multiple pairs of boots. There's a gun safe in there. They have so much gear, and Chris is also on the riot team, which means he has extra gear above just a patrol officer, and then he's a canine handler, so now he's got to have all his stuff for his dog too. So he's got harnesses and leashes and toys and treats and all kinds of extra stuff in there that he's got to have for his dog. I would show you that closet, but it's so messy, you guys. It's so disorganized. I've offered to organize it, and he told me, no, I know exactly where everything is. Whatever. It's his stuff. There's just so much stuff that comes along with being a police officer, which I had no idea until Chris entered that career field. Even when he is off duty, he is required to act if something happens right in front of him. He's a police officer 24/7. That means anywhere we go, he always has his badge and he always has his gun with him, which is great. It makes us feel like we're protected. But one odd thing with that is when he and I are walking together and holding hands, he feels very uncomfortable if I am standing on the same side as his gun. So I always have to stand on the opposite side of where his gun is holstered. That way he's got quick and easy access to it should he need it, which is pretty unlikely, but I mean, it's happened before, so it's something that he needs to be prepared for. Every time we go on a trip, we have to stop at different police departments and trade patches and coins. Chris collects them. They're pretty cool to have, I'm not gonna lie. This is in our family room, and he's got quite the collection going. As a wife, I never watch the news unless someone like sends me a clip that says, hey, I saw your husband on the news today. Or if I happen to see something in my news feed that involves a friend or something like that, then I will watch a news clip here and there. But I do not watch the news, because anytime something goes down, I'm worried it was him. And if it wasn't him, was it one of our friends? I don't read comments on articles. I don't read comments on social media when a big incident occurs. I just can't. My mental health can't handle it. So I just don't. I just avoid it. Ignorance is bliss. One thing that my children have started that I think is hilarious, and the kids just love it so much. When we are driving anywhere, we play a game called Cop Oink Oink. And anytime we see a patrol car of any kind, the first one to shout Cop Oink Oink wins a point. When the round ends is when the car turns off, and whoever has the most points by then wins. Super simple, but the kids love it. And it's helped me to recognize how many officers there really are out there because I'm looking for them and I'm paying attention. And that makes me feel so much better knowing how much backup he's got. That's one thing that I absolutely love about this job is that you are family. And that includes me, that includes the kids. The moment you are sworn in, you are a part of that family and you have backup. There was a time when Chris first switched departments to where he's at now that I didn't know the people that he worked with. And it kind of freaked me out. And I remember taking Chris one night and saying, look, I need you to introduce me to people that you work with. I needed to meet them firsthand. I needed to know who they were, partly because I just wanted to know who was backing him. And the other part was if something goes down and he gets hurt at work and somebody has to come and get me and take me to the hospital, or somebody has to come and tell me that he's gone, I don't want that to be a stranger. And that sounds silly, I know, but it gives me peace of mind to know it won't be a complete stranger telling me. I don't know why that helps, but it does. Some other stuff that's fun. The kids absolutely love to ride in the patrol car. They think it's the greatest thing when Dad lets them ride with him and he lets them flip on the lights and sometimes he'll let them chirp the siren a little bit and things like that. And they love it. Learning to trust the guys that he works with was easy for me because I got to know them a little bit and I knew they were good guys, and that was pretty easy. But trusting his training was a little more difficult for me, and that's because I see my husband, I see my best friend, I see the father of my children. I don't see the police officer side very often. So did a ride along and was able to see in person him taking care of things and him protecting himself and protecting the other officer. There was one moment on my ride along where he hadn't talked to one of his friends for a little bit and just wanted to check in on him and make sure he was okay, and so he radioed out to him. We didn't get a response back. So immediately Chris flipped a U-turn and started driving the direction that we knew he was, just in case. And we got there and everything was fine. But seeing how quickly they back each other and they don't even know that there's something wrong, just to be safe, because they're brothers. They care about their brothers, they care about their family, and they want to make sure that their brothers are safe. And I love that. I loved seeing that firsthand. One of the harder parts of it is we often have to do holidays differently because police officers have to work 24/7, right? So we often will celebrate holidays a little bit early, or we'll celebrate them a little bit late, or for smaller holidays I just celebrate just me and the kids and Dad just isn't part of it. We're good with that. We've figured out how to work it out so that it works well for all of us and we're all comfortable. But there are a lot of times that I feel like a married single mom. It's not his fault. He's doing everything he can to support our family, and I totally 100% support him and behind him. Because of the shift that he's on right now, I do bedtime by myself 95% of the time, and that's exhausting. And then because he's canine, he has to work graves, and that means if the kids wake up in the middle of the night, it's on me 100%. It can be pretty tiring because he has to work, and because his hours are so different than normal hours, we end up going places without him all the time, the kids and I do. And so I have people constantly asking me, where's your husband? Are you guys still married? But I've heard it like 1,000 times. So yes, he still exists. Yes, we're still happily married, but he works crazy hours. We really don't have a lot of super close friends that are not police family because a lot of people just don't get the schedule. Most of my best friends are police wives. I've made so many incredible friends with other police wives, and I wouldn't have met them if it weren't for this career path that Chris has chosen. And I'm so, so grateful for that. I have such incredible people in my life. Being friends with other police wives is really, really nice because when you're just having an anxiety day, they get it and it's okay. Or if your schedule is just freaking insane, they get it and it's okay. We can connect more on that level with the insanity of what this life is. There have been multiple times that I have gotten a random phone call from a fellow police wife whose husband works with my husband, and an incident has occurred in their city, and they're calling panicked because they don't know if it was their husband because they haven't heard back from him yet. And that can be the scariest feeling. To know that an incident occurred, to know that there's an officer down, but you don't know if it's your husband. And we have to kind of talk each other down sometimes and comfort each other and just remind each other that it's okay. I've had a lot of nightmares about Chris getting hurt at work. My imagination is kind of a jerk anyway. My subconscious is not kind to me. I've had a lot of dreams of he's been stabbed and is lying in a pool of his own blood. And he can't get to his radio. Or he's been shot in the head and he's gone immediately. There have been times that the dreams are so real and so intense that I have to call him because I just have to hear his voice. I have to know that he's okay because I'll wake up from these nightmares and he's usually not home. He works graves. And as soon as he says something, the floodgates open. Because I'm so relieved that he's okay. I didn't know it was gonna fall like this. There are often times, I know all husbands have to work late sometimes, but there are times that I will get a random text that says, I'm fine, I'm gonna be home late, some jerk decided to do something stupid at the end of my shift. Also, cops spend a lot of time in court. There are times that he has been subpoenaed to court, he goes in the morning like he's supposed to, and he sits there for hours, never even testifies, and then gets sent home. Like, what? Oh, it makes zero sense. Because that's time that he could be sleeping or time that he could be spending with his family. But instead, he sits at court. Doing nothing. Being an officer is a pretty scary job. We've had some pretty tough conversations just in case. Because you never know. He walks around with a literal target on his chest. And the climate for police officers right now is not good. And that is part of why we opted for him to get a patrol dog. He originally had a tracking dog. And he was a single-purpose bloodhound that did not do any personal protection. And when the opportunity arose, we had him switch over to a patrol dog because if they're calling for a dog, it's usually a really intense, really dangerous situation. We felt like it made more sense for him to have a patrol dog that could come out and protect him. So a patrol dog is the kind of dog that does a little bit of tracking, does drug detection, but also bites. So they're a little bit more intense, they're a little bit more work, but they're also able to protect him in a way that the bloodhound was not able to do. It's really nice. It's really comforting for me, my anxiety and my crazy train that happens in my head. It's very helpful for me to know that he has his dog there. When we drive in his city that he works in, he points out awful things. He'll go, there's a prostitute, that one just bought drugs, that one's selling drugs. And I'm like, I don't want to know this. I don't want to know this stuff. Like, I mean, it's stuff that he needs to know, obviously. And so I'm glad that he does, that he recognizes those signs. But like, I want to know. Ignorance is bliss, baby. Let me stay in my ignorance. We no longer live in even the county that Chris works in, but we used to live very near to the city that he works in. And it was incredibly difficult at times because we would be at the grocery store and we had to have a safe word so that if we saw someone that Chris had dealt with at work, he would say the safe word so that I could gather the kids and run to the other side of the grocery store, and Chris would just find us when the coast was clear. There were times that we were sitting at a restaurant, our entire family there, and someone that he had dealt with at work would walk up and, "Hey, officer!" and start talking to him. And I mean, these are not good people. These are people that he's arrested. These are people that we don't want them to know what area we live in. We don't want them to know what grocery store we frequent. We don't want them to know what our children look like. That can be pretty intense. It can be pretty scary. There were times that he arrested someone and would pull their ID out, and they live literally across the street from us. I can look out my kitchen window and see their garage door. Like, there was a time that Chris arrested someone, and dude was sitting in the back of his patrol car and started telling him what terrible things he was going to do to his family. Chris gets told things like that fairly often, and so he didn't think anything of it until the dude started describing me accurately. And the guy started describing our children accurately and started telling him what stores in the area we frequented. And this guy knew way too much information, way more than he should have known. Thankfully, he went to jail and was locked up for a long time, and he's actually since passed away, so the threat is gone. But I mean, that kind of thing could happen again. Because of those situations that I described, I actually chose to get my concealed carry permit and carry fairly frequently. I'm good, I'm comfortable with it, and I know that I could protect my children should the need arise. But that's something that you wouldn't normally have to think about. I mean, if your husband is an accountant, you don't normally get death threats against your family. Like, what is that? He has seen a lot in 11 years, and it's definitely changed how he interacts with random people. He used to be very, very outgoing. That man is still in there, but it has to happen. It has to be like the perfect storm for that man to come out. It's usually around other police families. He has to be in his comfort zone. He has to know that he's in a safe place for that side of him to come out anymore, where it used to be very free, and he used to be very open and goofy and very open to meeting new people. That's not really who he is anymore. He's much more skeptical of people. He deals with the worst of the worst all day, every day. I mean, who wouldn't become a little bit skeptical from that? So that's one side that's a little bit less than ideal. But then he comes home and he's still my Chris, and he's still the fantastic father that he's always been, and the wonderful husband that he's always been, and he's very attentive. It's only different around other people that he doesn't know, and it takes a lot to break down that wall to get to where you are a comfort zone for him. When you're dealing with the lowest of the lows all the time, it's going to change the way you perceive things. It's going to change your reality. He never knows what he's stepping into when he puts that uniform on. And I am so insanely proud of him. He works so hard, not only to protect me and to protect our children, to protect random strangers. He is so generous and so brave. And I am so incredibly, incredibly grateful for that man, for his willingness to serve. He's amazing. All right, guys, that's all I've got. That is what it's like to be married to a police officer. I would not trade this life for anything. Chris is exactly where he needs to be. He's exactly who he needs to be. He is a fantastic human being and a fantastic police officer. And I think a lot of times people, especially nowadays, they see that uniform, they see that badge, and they forget that there's a human being behind all of that. And I think it's important that we remember that. Thank you guys so much for watching my video about being a police wife. Let me know if you have any questions. Stick them in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer those. Have a fantastic day, everyone. That Otter Mama signing out.